Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lawcast. This time, we're going back to cover WWE's triumphant debut on network TV all the way back in 1985. It's the very first episode of Saturday night's main event. Cuse, you ready for this one, brother?
Oh, I'm ready for this, Steve. We're doing a watch along. We've only done one of those ever before, so we're off the reservation trying to figure it out as we go. And also, as a little bit of trivia, this takes place exactly 1 month and 2 days after I was born, if that gives
Wow.
you context for how old this shit is.
This shit is as old as Cuse.
And that's real old.
Yeah, so go to your WWE network if you want to watch along here. Queue up the May 11th, 1985 episode of Saturday Night's Main Event. That's the very first Saturday Night's Main Event ever. So go get that. We'll give you a few minutes to go ahead and get that while we kind of set the stage for you a little bit here. For me, I find these Saturday Night's Main Events are probably the best shows of the Hogan era. I think this is like the most watchable stuff.
Yeah, the best thing about Saturday Night's Main Event is that there weren't really there weren't pay-per-views at all yet. WrestleMania would come and sort of invent that idea, and then later on, like your SummerSlams and Survivor Series. But at this point, there was really just house shows and live events, and then like some of them were big and some of them were small. But there wasn't like one central thing that everyone was watching. You were just getting kind of highlights from the house shows. The idea of Saturday Night's Main Event is like, what if there was one wrestling show that you just put all the biggest stars on, and like they would like do big storylines that would set up like your house show circuit for the next 6 months. And that's such a cool idea.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where, these are this is their biggest, most important show. Like, even, I'd argue even more so than WrestleMania. Like, in terms of WrestleMania is where they make their money, but this is how they build WrestleMania, is by reaching this massive network TV audience and getting millions of people to tune in. This is how they can sell hundreds of thousands of pay-per-views, by promoting it. So the big reach is what's most important in my mind.
This show is what makes WWF and Hulk Hogan a household name.
Yeah.
It's not just that the show itself was super big, though there were so few television options at the time that millions upon millions of people were watching it, but also it's one of those things that's like in newspapers and the TV guide. All the drive time radio guys are going to talk about it because it's what's on TV tonight. You can't pay for that kind of exposure. When like your Johnny Carsons are looking for guests for their talk shows, they're looking for like, oh, what's the new TV show that just came out? Oh, that's Saturday Night's Main Event show. Let's bring on Hulk Hogan. That's how Hulk Hogan becomes someone that everyone in the United States of America can point to and recognize. It's because of the exposure a show like this gives you. You can't buy that network exposure. WWE tried after this. They never got it again.
Yeah, I mean, we can't overstate how big the time slot is here. It airs on Saturday nights on NBC in place of Saturday Night Live, at a time where Saturday Night Live is huge. It's a cultural phenomenon. I think 85 might actually be like their weakest point, but still, it's a huge deal. There's only 3 TV channels at this point. People are tuning in expecting to see Saturday Night Live, and then they find out it's not on this week and this is on instead. Like, massive opportunity here to reach people who have never watched pro wrestling before.
Weirdly, Saturday Night Live is one of those, you know how everyone has some of those things, those topics that they know like way too much about and it seems weird? The history of Saturday Night Live is one of those for me.
Yeah. Is 85 the terrible season?
85 is a real rough period. And fortunately for WWE, because their rise to prominence coincides with SNL's complete decline. So like if this were during like the late 70s, early 80s period, they never would have replaced an episode of Saturday Night Live with anything else for any amount of money, just because the amount of people watching was astronomical. Here, it's like, oh, well, maybe we can play around with that a bit.
Yeah, so it comes on at late night, 11:30 after the local news. So the way you set it up, you're basically booking the show in reverse. Like, your biggest stuff has to happen at the beginning of the show, because as you get further and further into the show, people are going to start going to sleep. Like, it's the same concept as like as the Tonight Show or any other late night talk show. They always put their big stuff on first, the monologue, and then whoever their biggest guest is first, and the stuff at the end is the crap. Same with Saturday Night Live.
Oh,
The monologue, the musical performances, the good sketches, those go on early. They save the shit that nobody wants to see for the end. Because everybody's gone to sleep by then.
They famously have this segment on every Saturday Night Live, which was the last segment that they put on before the finale bit.
Yeah.
Which is literally just the weirdest shit that any of the writers could come up with because they know nobody's watching.
Isn't it?
Yeah. It's literally just like, hey, do you have a weird idea that probably won't work? Fuck it. Toss it in that time slot. See if it works.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is so much bigger than any other TV show you're getting in this era. You're getting top quality matches on TV. There's no good matches on TV in this era.
No.
Their TV is all squash matches. You want to see real matches? You buy a ticket or you buy a pay-per-view.
And that's why it's so hard to talk about this era of wrestling. It's literally like when you've watched more modern wrestling, it's so hard to unwind your mind back to a point where like TV shows didn't fucking matter. They were just a way for your kid to sit at home and get interested in Hulk Hogan so that then you'd shell out $20 to come see him. That was the whole business model. The business model literally doesn't exist anymore. Like here, right now, Vince McMahon basically just has come out and said, the live event business has finally died. Coronavirus killed it. It's amazing it lasted as long as it did.
Oh, no. We've been talking for literally years now about how it's stupid that WWE continues to do house shows. It's just, they've been losing, I'm pretty sure they've been losing their money on their house shows the last few years.
Yeah. It just, you can't quit the idea that wrestling is the circus. It's a live event thing. It's not. It hasn't been for so long.
It's a TV show. It really has been for years now.
Ever since Nitro, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll start in a minute. This was taped May 10th, 1985. That was Friday. It aired the next night, May 11th, 85, at the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York. Crowd of about 8,300 on hand. Not a sellout, which I find interesting. They're hot by 85, but they're not white hot yet. Like, they're not as hot as they're going to be in, like, 87, 88, 89.
Well, it's because this is what makes them that hot. Also, I don't think they really knew what Saturday Night's main event was going to be. Like, if you went to a TV taping before this, I don't think that you knew what the fuck it is.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what matches you're going to get.
Show did an 8.8 rating, massive success. Obviously, they brought him back, and this would become a staple for years to come. Last Saturday Night's main event was late 92, I think, on Fox by then. But this is a staple for years to follow. Lots of dark matches. Salvatore Bellomo defeated Johnny Rodz. Les Thornton defeated Rick McGraw. Big John Studd defeated Tony Garea. Jose Luis Rivera defeated Charlie Fulton. And Moondog Spot defeated Steve Lombardi. They were really committed to giving people like a full 3-hour show here.
Which makes sense because people did pay like actual money to see this show live. And you can't just give them an hour and send them home.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. So, I think it's time to run this. So, when I say go, we hit play. So, 3, 2, 1, go. Play.
Yeah!
And we cut straight in on, my God, that's Cyndi Lauper. What's she doing here?
She's unusual.
Yes, she is. She is the manager for Wendi Richter, the WWE Women's Champion. And they, have a big problem with the Fabulous Moolah. Moolah always cheats.
They don't even have the slightest idea how much Moolah really cheats.
No. Oh, God.
And here is Hulk Hogan and Mr. T cutting a promo. Hulk Hogan at least 3 feet taller than Mr. T.
Yeah, that is an enormous height difference. Mr. T, having to portray Hogan is just that big. Like, easy to lose sight of how massive a man he is.
And just some wrestler wandering by in the background in his singlet, just wandering out of the crowd. That's pretty funny.
That's probably one of the guys who just finished their dark match, and they're just walking out here. I do love. Oh, shit. There's just a rawness to this that I enjoy.
Man, look at this intro. I love this.
Oh, this is my fave. So on the network, they have to dub out Obsession by Animotion, which is the theme song that they would use kind of throughout the 80s. I think they ditched it around 1990. But yeah, great intro here. I mean, just cutting edge. I mean, it's easy to make fun of now, but for 1985, this is great stuff.
It still doesn't look that bad. WCW was basically running with this production value in like 1995.
Yeah, that's the big difference. Is like, and this looks so. I mean, WrestleMania was only 2 months before this. This looks so much better. Like, they got some real fucking lights. Look at this.
And the relationship between Vince McMahon and Dick Ebersol is so much about what makes this successful, because he's the one who basically produces this and makes it look this good. Jesse Ventura is here looking like just a Las Vegas pimp.
Yeah. Jesse and Vince on commentary, as that's always the duo for Saturday night's main event, till Jesse leaves the company. Briefly, I think in about 87, Jesse left to kind of build his movie career, and they went to, I think that was when they first subbed in Heenan, and then according to Jesse, Dick Ebersol kind of insisted that they bring Jesse back because, you know, he was a big, I mean, by then, especially after he's done Predator, he's one of the biggest stars in the company.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
All right, here we got Iron Sheik coming out when he still had abs.
God, he is in shape here. Look at him. Yeah, one half of the World Tag Team Champions. Him and Nikolai Volkov, of course, stole the belts from the U.S. Express at WrestleMania.
If you were watching this with us,
shot from their manager, Freddie Blassie.
If you're watching this with us right now, please just absolutely reflect on the hairdos on Ricky Steamboat, Mike Rotunda, and Barry Windham. 3 different hairdos, all of them as 80s as it can possibly be.
Yeah. These 3 men have nothing in common that I can think of.
They're all from the United States, I guess.
Yeah. Hawaii's part of the U.S. Lou Albano has a rubber band in his piercing.
In both of his piercings. He's got one hanging off the ear there, too. I never really got Lou Albano. Like, I guess, like, he's super charismatic and super adorable and lovable, but, like,
he had been a heel until, like, right before this.
Yeah.
He only turned face here after the Girls Just Want to Have Fun video, and this being the very end of his career was when he became a babyface.
I just never knew what was up with the rubber bands. That's probably something as a wrestling historian I should know, and I'm just embarrassed that I don't.
Yeah.
Enjoying the Russian national anthem here.
What are the words to this?
The Russian national anthem is one of the most beautiful and powerful national anthems when sung correctly.
Really?
That is not what we're treated to here.
No. Iran #1, Russia #1, USA.
Oh, here comes the U.S. Express.
Yeah, so they dub over Born in the USA, which I believe they were still coming out to, and at some point here they will switch over and they use Real American before Hulk Hogan does.
How amazing is it that they were like getting away with like indie promotion stuff where they were just playing like real people's actual songs that they did not pay for the rights to?
Yeah, and at some point the record companies are like, "Hey, you're gonna pay us for that, right?" They're like, "Oh, no."
Where the hell did George Animal Steel come from?
Why is he on this team?
Wait, is he on the bad guys team?
Yeah, he's still a bad guy at this point.
There is no rhyme or reason. He did not come out with them. He just bursts onto the screen out of nowhere.
I don't think Blassie was his manager. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Man, this crowd is fucking rocking for this.
They fucking love it.
Oh, look at all those empty seats.
Nah, never mind.
They have smartly moved everyone to, the hard camera side. But yeah, camera caught all the empty seats in the upper deck there.
This is...
I do like all 3 guys wearing the same colored trunks. That's a nice little touch.
For sure. What do you think of the U.S. Express as a team?
Pretty generic. I mean, Wyndham and Rotunda, both talented wrestlers. I mean, Wyndham, I think more so than Rotunda, but Wyndham is a guy who just never fit in the WWF. He was one of those guys who was born to be in the NWA. He's this big stud working big man, but he never had a ton of charisma or, character, and that just doesn't work in the WWF in this era. But 6'6" stud who can wrestle 60-minute matches, like that's
Yeah,
a hell of a talent.
I think he was just born 5 years too late. Like, I feel like if he had been around during like the 70s NWA days, that would have been perfect for him. But since he was in with the 80s when TV started to come in, he just didn't quite have it on that level.
I could definitely imagine him as a great traveling NWA champion in the 80s.
Oh yeah, he's like a Lex Luger who can work.
Yeah.
It's funny to see Ricky Steamboat included in with that though, because I don't think I ever knew that he was like in any way part of this group.
I mean, there's no group. This was just a one-off thing.
Okay.
It is interesting to see him wearing trunks. I think he switches to the long tights not too long after this, because that's when he gets the dragon gimmick. When I guess they realize that he kind of looks like Bruce Lee.
Yes, Vince with his large.
Yeah, Vince saw an episode of the Green Hornet and was like, "God damn, we got a guy who looks like Kato."
Yeah, TNA had the same thought roughly 20 years later. You know, it's funny that Iron Sheik is such a joke at this point. Like, he's literally like the wrestling punchline. But there was a time when he was like so incredibly in shape and so credible and so hated.
Badass.
Yeah.
Incredible wrestler, incredible power lifter.
His backstory was absolutely incredible.
Bodyguard for the Shah of Iran.
Yes. Olympian? Fuck.
Yeah. One of legitimate. I mean, I don't know if one of the strongest men in the world, but like certainly probably the strongest man in the WWF at this time on a roster of just gigantic, jacked dudes.
Yeah, this is a weird comparison, but he's sort of the Cesaro of his day, where he's like not the biggest guy, but I guarantee you he's stronger than people twice his size.
The thing he would do with the clubs was amazing when you realize how heavy those things are.
I've held one of those things before. Like, you can't even lift the shit, and he's just swinging them around
He's
casually.
just spinning them. Yeah, you can see how empty the upper deck is.
Man, nobody's here for this at all.
It's kind of amazing because these will become big events after this. Like, once people, I think, see how big these shows are, then it becomes an event. Like, people aren't going to miss it.
It's also funny because this is like, it's not New York City, but it's not far off. Like, it's weird that they can't draw more.
Yeah. I mean, they had just run the Garden. I mean, they were running the Garden every month at this point, so I do think maybe they were just kind of burning the New York market out. All right, Pier 6 Brawl.
It's breaking down in Nassau.
Are we going to commercial here? I think we are.
And that's another thing, too, is like it must have been super weird for a lot of these guys to learn how to wrestle for TV, because that's not really a thing that existed.
No,
like wrestling for commercial.
They'd just done their 2-minute squash matches on TV.
Yeah, just like, what do you do during the commercial break? Like, you have to, like, they hadn't yet figured out, like, okay, let's lock in a rest hold and stay here for 3 minutes.
I mean, it's not live, so I don't know that much of anything happened, quote unquote, happened during the commercial there. Like, we came back and the bad guys were still on the floor, so I assume that big power slam! I assume that in the arena nothing really happened. Steamboat gonna fly. Beautiful missile drop kick from the Dragon. Going back up. Man, I love Ricky Steamboat.
God, he's so much more high-flying than anyone you see during this era. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you compare him to... Nobody else is like even leaving the ground for a drop kick, and he is just flying off the top rope.
Does it seem like he should have been a bigger star even than he was?
Yeah, but I mean, he walked away right as he was getting the biggest push of his career. Right after they put the Intercontinental belt on him, he wanted to go home with his newborn son, which is a totally respectable thing to do, but not what Vince McMahon was looking for in this era.
But it's also, I don't really feel like Vince saw him as a workhorse, but I don't think he ever saw him as like his snooker replacement, even though that's probably what he had the potential to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely feels like he could have been more, but it's also just like he's not big compared to the guys they're pushing.
That's true.
Like,
that's true.
This is definitely the big man territory. Like, the idea of a world champion who's only 6 feet tall is insane at this point. Savage manages to break that barrier, but it's Randy Savage.
Say only by being the second most charismatic man on the planet Earth. And he probably never breaks through if not for that weirdness with Hogan.
Yeah. Another near fall from Rotunda.
Oh, what the fuck? Oh, come on.
Horrible sunset flip.
He sunset flipped him 1 foot from the corner, and then sunset flips him into the corner, and then tries to go for the pin. Like, Mike, dude, come on, you're on television.
Yeah. Kind of wish they had redone that spot.
I have to say, this is not live.
No.
They did it again!
Barry Windham. I mean, it's impressive to see Barry Windham get up and do that, though. But yeah, is this ring a different size than usual? They seem confused. All right, now we got George Steele in there. George Steele from the foreign country of East Lansing, Michigan. He's a school teacher. Not anymore. I think I'm pretty sure he's dead now because he was pretty old. He was like 50 at this point.
Yes.
No, they won't tag him! They won't tag him!
George Animal Steele is 48 years old here.
Yeah. And he ends up having probably the best run of his career here. I mean, this is what people remember. Look at the reaction for that. Like, this meaningless 6-man tag match, and the crowd is going crazy like the Islanders just won the Stanley Cup.
Our boys beat the Foreigners. That's all we ever wanted.
Yeah, Steele gonna tear the turnbuckle apart. And this is George the Animal Steele's face turn right here.
Oh, this is right now?
Yeah.
Why are they beating his ass for no reason?
It's very poorly constructed. I mean, I wonder if there's something I missed here, but I don't think there is. The thing about the way they would book Saturday night's main event is it tended to be very self-contained. Right. Like, sometimes it would be, I mean, there are times it's continuing storylines or building to things, but frequently they're booking this for people who don't watch the rest of their programming because they know they have a bigger audience here than they have for anything else. So they're really trying to put together, like, what is an easily, self-contained hour of TV? Who is a good, easy, compelling villain for Hogan? And that's where you get, the Nikolai Volkovs and Sika, a foreigner, a big monster, like something anybody watching can understand.
Yeah, this is the perfect match to start off with because it's literally just an American flag versus foreigners. That's it. That's all this is.
Yeah. Easy to make this work at, roughly the peak of the Cold War and not that long removed from the Iran hostage crisis.
Let's compare that to the first match they put on when they decided to redo it again in modern times in 2006, which was John Cena and Triple H versus Kurt Angle, Mysterio, and Orton. A match that Yeah, that's not good.
Mean Gene going to get a word here with the heels, and I love how the baby faces just walk right up to him here, because
that's so funny. Oh, we're brawling.
Oh, we're rumbling. That's something. I mean, I don't know. There's a grittiness to just being right there in the tunnel that I like. This is, I feel like, not something you would see a lot of in this time.
But see, I wish they would do more stuff like this now. Just the idea, like, well, they're going back to the same locker room. There's going to be problems.
Yeah. All right. Coming up, we've got Piper's Pit with special guest, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. So we got Piper here. We got his bodyguard, Cowboy Bob Orton. Suffered an unfortunate arm injury that's required a cast. Of course, Piper and Orton were teammates at Wrestlemania just 2 months before this. And Piper and Orton, of course, or Piper and Orndorff suffered defeat at the hands of Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. And they're going to try to hash things out here. Paul Orndorff looking like he's, painting his basement in some nice white shorts and no shirt.
he has less clothing on than he does when he wrestles in the ring. Like, the idea of seeing a man in just the tiniest white shorts and then white socks pulled all the way up and white shoes, it's just giving me such, like, dad energy,
Yeah.
but, like,
God,
stripper
look
dad
at his
energy.
body.
He looks better than Hogan. Like, we need to make reference of that. Like, Paul Orndorff
Amazing
always looks
physique.
better than Hogan.
If he could talk worth a damn. Like, so Orndorff, of course, had one of the biggest runs of the 80s against Hogan.
He was the only person who was credible against Hogan.
Yeah. I mean, even though he's not terribly tall, he's just so built you can buy that he could beat him. And there's just a ton of heat from Hogan's friend has turned on him, even though they're friends for about a year here before he turns on him.
That's why they were so sure that the Sheik tugboat thing was going to work, because it had worked with Orndorff, who wasn't really the most dynamic presence, and it worked so good. They drew like 80,000 in Toronto with Orndorff.
Yeah. Same, and with Savage, drew their biggest pay-per-view of all time with WrestleMania 5.
Yeah, betraying Hogan was the money.
Yeah. This segment goes on for a little too long. I mean, it's oddly edited because it's kind of like we joined it right in progress. Then it goes on for a little while longer than it really needs to.
People don't actually know, too. Like, back in the day when, like, Piper would occasionally do these at, like, live events and stuff like that, Piper's Pit could go on for, like, 45 minutes.
Like, because he could just antagonize the crowd that much.
Yeah, Piper was just given, like, a blank check and just, like, go do it for as long as you fucking want to do it. It's what the crowd came to see anyway.
And then again, the ones on TV would be like 2 or 3 minutes. They are so quick and to the point because it's only like a 50-minute show. So they don't have 15 minutes to do a promo segment like they do today.
It's also just so interesting that, like, Piper's, like, the only person in the company who can cut a promo at this point. Like, Hogan's not even really in the place where he's cutting, like, good Hogan promos yet, if you can call those good.
He's still finding it. Yeah.
There aren't a lot of promos in this company right now. That's why Piper gets such shrift.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who else. You have the managers, and that's, I mean, pretty much you have Heenan and you have Blassie, but there's, off the top of my head, not a lot of wrestlers on this roster who can really talk.
I mean, it's to the point where Piper doesn't really wrestle very often at all during this era, which makes sense because he can't lose because he refuses to ever do a job.
No, never, ever do a job for anybody.
That's why we never get the Piper Hogan match. That makes so much fucking sense. It's ridiculous, but it just never happens because it can't.
They couldn't even do a cage match where Hogan could have escaped the cage and Piper wouldn't have had to be pinned.
See, there's literally no circumstances where you couldn't just give him $1 million to do a job.
Yeah. You would have made it back if you put it on pay-per-view.
Like, there's no question that, like, Hogan Andre was huge, but in terms of drawing money, I think Hogan Piper at, like, WrestleMania 2 would have drawn unreal money.
Hogan Piper in a cage at 2, and we know there's finally going to be a winner, and, like, Piper's finally going to get his comeuppance, would have been huge. Yeah. And, here we go! Orndorff's had enough.
Oh, he's grabbing his head and he's wrenching it all around and he's going for the pile driver.
Get your ass over there. Oh, there we go. Jesus.
That's the awkward thing about fighting when you're on, like, a set with chairs and stuff, is that he's got to run around them.
Well, T's coming down with his exercise bar. He's got this.
Was he, like, selling exercise bars at this time? What is with the exercise bars?
It's just, he's working out. He's a big guy.
Everybody's got these, like, Suzanne Summers exercise bars.
I love all the cops. It's like 10 cops at ringside here.
Yeah, that gives it such a chaotic feel. Like, it could break down at any minute.
Entrances are incredibly chaotic, where they're having to, like, the fans are right on top of them in the aisle. The aisle seems like it's like 2 feet wide, and they're just having to basically walk through the crowd, surrounded by police to get down there.
I wonder, there's probably so much of our audience that, like, obviously is much too young to have attended, like, Southern wrestling shows back in the day. But, like, we're so trained to the idea that, like, wrestling entrances are, like, separated out and nobody gets in the way, and, like, back in, like, the Southern wrestling days, literally, like, fans would just be touching you and, like, running in your way, and you'd shove them out of the way and stuff.
Mean Gene gonna get a word with the Hulkster here. Hulk Hogan, what are you gonna do to Roddy Piper and Bob Orton tonight? Well, dude, let me tell you something. Mother's Day's coming up, brother, and I'm gonna run Roddy Piper right here out of the WWF in honor of my mother, Mrs. Hogan, and Mr. T's mama, Mrs. T. We're done with that no good skirt wearing jackal, Roddy Piper. Dude.
I like his headband.
Those are slick. I'm sure they sold a lot of those.
Oh, yeah. Also, I love it when a man with just a giant forehead wears a headband, because that thing is like, would be in the middle of a normal man's forehead. Yeah. Some random debris rains down on Okerlund, and he just spares it a glance.
Hasn't grown the mustache all the way out yet.
He looks so young.
Yeah. I mean, he's still got some hair left. The hair isn't quite as long. It's not like straw like it would later be.
Yeah.
Yeah. No entrance for Orton. They really keep these shows moving.
Orton looks like the ugliest male stripper I've ever seen.
Yeah. If you really didn't like pay extra for the bachelorette party, that's what you're getting.
And let me just say, too, like, there's enough of his son in his face that you can tell that Randy Orton is his son. But can you imagine if you were as ugly as Bob Orton and had a son as unbelievably handsome as his son is?
I assume Mrs. Orton is a very good-looking woman. I've never seen pictures.
I've got to imagine.
Woo! There's the Hulkster. Was still coming out to Eye of the Tiger at this point. Of course, they dub over that on the network for Real American.
Cops are literally shoving people's hands away because they all are, like, leaning to reach Hogan.
So, I mean, like, it's not a good idea because, like, this could easily go bad, but this looks so cool.
If you look at, like, the faces of the people reaching for him, this is, like, cult-like.
Yeah.
Like, this is not just, oh, it's my favorite wrestler, I want to touch him. Oh, my God, I touched him, Dad, look at me. Like, no, these are people, like, reaching to touch their idol.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody tells you that somebody was as over as Hulk Hogan, I just need you guys to understand that they're fucking wrong. This was some intense shit.
Steve Austin, 1999, is pretty much the only one I'd say that's in the ballpark.
He was as popular as Hogan, but I'm not sure he was as beloved as Hogan.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's just a different era by then. Fans were more cynical.
Yeah, it's not out of the realm of saying to say that he was a hero to people, like, for real.
Smart to bridge Hogan's entrance across the commercial there. That definitely kept people around.
Steve, you know how when we hang out, how we rip each other's shirts off to show how good friends we are?
Yeah, that's what friends do. T with some sweet workout pants there.
Man, T's looking great.
Yeah. No, glad he ripped his shirt off. He's shredded. Orton not looking so great.
Yes, not so much shredded. Nope.
More of a typical wrestler there with the beer belly.
Who was the 95-year-old man refereeing this match?
I was going to ask that. The only referee I know from back at this point is Dave Hebner.
Yeah, this definitely isn't a Hebner. This man is ancient.
Yeah.
He started refereeing Gotch versus Hackenschmidt.
Orton went for the cheap shot, and he's paying for it.
Does he just keep the chaps on the whole match? That seems like
I think he gets him off eventually. Hogan with a drop down, surprisingly cat-like. Big slam.
Another. And another.
Grab a hold, brother. Exposing the business. Too many high spots.
Orton just says, fuck this, and leaves.
Yeah. Getting his ass kicked here. Man, wooden steps. This is old school.
Here's the thing about Hogan.
No mats on the floor.
No, this is the oldest of schools.
Yeah.
Hogan's matches aren't like, if you just read a transcript of them, you'd be like, this is the most boring match of all time. But he just invests every single thing that he does with so much energy. It's crazy.
Just hard to communicate in his charisma and all the little things he's doing here.
He may, of all the wrestlers I've ever seen, be the best at getting over to the crowd everything he wants to get across. You know what I mean? He just speaks through body language very well.
Yeah. I always point out how underrated his selling is.
Oh, it's
Like,
amazing.
people think Hogan didn't sell. Hogan got his ass kicked in every match he ever did. That was the point of the Hogan match. It was to build to the comeback.
I mean, he had to, too, because you never thought that Hogan was actually going to lose. The whole idea was he had to spend 10 minutes.
He's biting him.
He's biting
Less savage.
the sweaty curls of Bob Orton.
Hope he doesn't have hepatitis yet.
Oh my god.
I don't know when that happened.
Oh man.
Hulkster working that bad arm.
Working the arm.
Gonna be wearing that cast for another 10 years now.
Like a technical pro.
Look at that. Wraps the arm around the post.
Ventura says this is the most vicious he's ever seen Hogan in the ring.
I mean, honestly, like...
It pretty much is. You don't see Hogan work the
working
arm.
A body part, yeah. Nice drop kick. Shades of his son.
More like a Busaiku knee kick from Kenta. Wow, just really out of the blue. Bob Orton, it's actually kind of funny because he's an incredibly underrated worker. Like everything that he does looks good, except being himself. That was another ugly joke.
Yeah. No, he is a very, very sound worker. Kind of sloppy atomic drop there, but you know what? Hogan's a big guy to have to get up for that. Nice kick out by Hogan. Threw him all the way up in the air.
I've always wondered how they do that sometimes. Like, I know to a certain extent, like, you push yourself off the ground, but, like, when they get, like, 3 feet up in the air, I've never been able to figure that out.
Yeah, famously, when Yokozuna won the Royal Rumble, he threw Randy Savage, like, from a pinning position all the way over the top rope.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Orton working on Hogan here. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what Bob Orton did for the rest of his career. He's Piper's bodyguard for a while here. He gets knocked out by Mr. T on Saturday night's main event before WrestleMania 2 in a boxing match, which is one of those things I find hilarious that, like, Piper wouldn't even sell for T, and, like, Orton's like, yeah, pay me and I'll get knocked out by him in a worked boxing match.
Well, let me tell you some things that Bob Orton did for the rest of his career. His last match was supposed to be against Bret Hart at Madison Square Garden, but they canceled it, so he left.
What year was that?
90.
Oof.
He went
I
to
did not realize he stuck around until 90.
He went to New Japan Pro Wrestling and wrestled as Billy Gaspar.
Why on earth would they change his name?
I don't know. He teamed with Scott Hall in the New Japan Elimination League.
You gotta love those New Japan tag tournaments. Here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah, punch him again, brother. That'll work.
He's gonna say you. He's gonna say it.
Use the damn cast. Right hand, right hand, right hand.
And
the lariat, the axe bomber, and the big leg.
And the big elbow.
Elbow?
What the fuck? Wait a minute, what?
Really mixing up the formula here. I like it. Headbutt? Yeah, no, did not see that coming at all.
He literally did the entire Hulk Hogan thing, except he was like, let's hit him with the axe bomber.
Yeah,
and
not ready to go home yet. As
he was jumping for the leg drop, he was like, oh shit, we got 3 more minutes.
He counters the 10 punch with an inverted atomic drop.
People did not counter 10 punches in this era. That's kind of fresh.
Or as Vince McMahon would call it, what a maneuver!
What a maneuver!
I'll tell you what, McMahon, that's a very painful hold there. Can he get him up? Uh-oh! The superplex! I think the ring would explode if he superplexed Hogan.
I think you're probably right. This ring is shaking like there's an earthquake going on.
Are we really going to see this here?
Is he
Can he get the big man up?
People are on their feet for this.
Yeah.
Imagine a time where the superplex was not a totally ruined move.
Yeah, like that would have been the high spot of the night. Hogan with kind of a shitty elbow there.
But here comes the leg. Boom!
Got him. What? No! That dirty, rotten son of a bitch, Roddy Piper. Yeah, this is the downside of Saturday Night's Main Event. No finishes on these shows.
Oh, God, no.
Like, Bob Orton can't lose to Hulk Hogan? Really? Oh, double team and Mr. T. Hogan still struggling to get it together. Now he's up.
Hogan says, bring it on, the both of you.
2-on-1, he'll take him. T's out of it.
Piper ripped.
Yeah. That's impressive.
Hell yeah.
T seems to have recovered, but he's not doing anything. There we
go.
Paul Orndorff. He's not Hogan's friend. Or is
They're
he?
friends again.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, 2 matches, 2 turns. We've had George Steele turn face, and now Paul Orndorff turn face.
Does that face turn stick?
This is the one where he becomes Hogan's friend, and then he turns on him the year after this, and they have the big feud.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
All right. Coming back here, we're going to have a special ladies match as Wendi Richter defends the women's championship against the Fabulous Moolah.
Now, it feels kind of bizarre to have a women's match on a show like this. Without Cyndi Lauper's involvement, obviously, it doesn't happen.
I mean, it's always going to be so strange to me that the first MTV special they did was a women's match.
Yeah.
It was Richter versus Moolah.
Wendi Richter was, God, probably until China, the best-known women's wrestler to casual fans in the world, even though she only lasts like a year.
Moolah here is explaining that because Cyndi Lauper interfered at this is the war to settle the score. No, that's the brawl to end it all back in July '84. Because Wendi Richter interfered back then, she has gone to World Wrestling Federation officials and gotten them to ban Richter from ringside tonight. Not Richter from ringside, Lauper from ringside. So she will not be on the floor managing Wendi Richter tonight.
Steve, do you want to hazard a guess at the age of the Fabulous Moolah here?
56.
62.
Jesus!
Born in 1923.
That is absurd.
Yes. She has been the only notable name in women's wrestling since Mildred Burke was blacklisted in the 70s, so it's been a while.
What did Mildred Burke get blacklisted for?
She wanted basically equal representation in the NWA, and they laughed her out because women weren't allowed.
Wasn't gonna happen.
And then she was dating a promoter from the NWA, and then she left him because he was abusive, and he got her blacklisted, basically, is what happened. It's a horrible story, makes everyone in the NWA look like trash. Mildred Burke forever.
Now we're going to hear from Cyndi Lauper, and that's her boyfriend. What's his name? David Wolf?
I don't know the answer to that.
He's a big wrestling fan, managed to Jimmy Hart his way into the deal here.
That makes total sense. I mean, wouldn't you want to?
Yeah. Just, getting to play fantasy wrestler here. What do you make of that baby blue strap on the women's title? I think that's kind of classy.
I actually love the women's title here. I think it looks great. I think Wendi looks great.
Yeah.
Cyndi Lauper's awesome. The idea of having Cyndi Lauper be so involved in this because she's such a passionate fan of wrestling, it's like, imagine if anybody on her level today would loved wrestling to this extent.
Yeah. What's the equivalent? Taylor Swift?
I mean, something up there like that. Yeah,
Katy Perry, somebody big.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So Richter, as I remember, they briefly teased the idea that Hogan and Richter were going to be an on-screen item. So they were almost Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch back in the 80s.
How fascinating was that? I think it was actually Hogan's wife who put the kibosh on that.
Interesting.
Because
Linda was wise to how the business works.
oh yeah, because he definitely would have been cheating on her with
Would have
Wendi
been rust in his eyes. Ooh, yeah. The women had, ooh, yeah, getting
Okay,
groped.
three
is
different
no-
people definitely just groped Cyndi Lauper on the way in here.
Yeah, and she's just gonna get sent to the locker room in a second here.
She doesn't even get to stay out here?
Now, Moolah had her banned from ringside.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Wendi Richter looking spectacularly 80s with that hair.
But like it's a great look for the 80s. I mean, she looks fantastic.
Oh
And
yeah, she's like the
Moolah,
model of an 80s woman here.
Moolah looks so grandma right here that
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
literally looks like a grandma at a wedding with that white suit.
I'm sure that like in his heart of hearts, Vince wishes he had had anybody else to do this. But like there isn't a women's division. There's not women's wrestling at this point. All the women's wrestlers who exist live with Moolah.
She beat Leilani Kai at WrestleMania.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
The recently deceased Howard Finkel, may he rest in peace, the greatest of all time, reading Moolah's pronouncement, which I love how it's written on parchment and like with an ink quill.
Beautiful.
That Cyndi Lauper has been banned from ringside.
So November 25th of this year is the one
Screw
where
job.
the screw job takes place.
The original screw job. So, to explain what happened there, Richter's contract was coming up, and Vince was trying to get her to re-sign, like asked her to do it ambushed her with a new contract at Madison Square Garden right before her match, and she wouldn't sign it right then and there. So she goes to the ring to wrestle the Spider Lady, who is just supposed to be a jobber. But it turns out it's Moolah under the mask, and Moolah hooks her and pins her on a fast count. And it's a screw job both in kayfabe and reality, as they've stolen the belt from Wendi Richter, and she is never seen again. Never welcomed back, unfortunately.
It's absolutely insane, like the idea that they would do this. Like, it's actually funny. I don't remember who it was, but like before the Montreal Screwjob happened, somebody said to Brett, like, remember what they did to Wendi?
Yeah.
Vince has done this before. He'll do it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that did she did finally come back. I forgot she was inducted into the Hall of Fame back in 2010.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that I'd forgotten that happened. I'm glad it did, because she's an important part of, company history, really. These are some of the biggest matches in this founding period for this company.
It's also worth mentioning that without this, there's a good chance that women's
Look
wrestling
at that bump Moolah just took.
He just took a bump off over the rope to the concrete.
That's insane. She's 62.
She is a bad. She was taking bumps through tables at 82.
Yeah.
It's just funny because if these series of matches don't happen.
When Bubba asked her about it, wasn't she like, yeah, don't do it like a pussy or something like that?
That was May who said that.
That was May.
Yeah, was just like, Mayor, how do you want me to do it? She was just like, don't be a pussy, kid. Just put me through.
Took a powerbomb off the stage. Moolah working through her very limited offense. Hair pull, scratch, snapmare, that was about it.
There's a reason that women's wrestling was in the state that it was at this point. Like, it had been sort of a curiosity in like the 40s and 50s. It wasn't really a thing, especially after Mildred Burke kind of got stamped out of existence because she was the real draw, not Moolah. And then, God, if this series of matches doesn't happen, if Cyndi Lauper doesn't get interested in pro wrestling, I'm not sure women's wrestling even exists anymore.
Yeah,
because Vince,
died out.
Yeah, Vince keeps going back to it because of the success of this. It's not like the WWF had ever had any real success with it.
No, no, I can't think of any women's wrestling from back then.
Yeah.
Whew.
This match is
This match already overstaying its welcome, and we're about 2 minutes in.
this could have been 30 seconds, guys. Come on, let's wrap it up.
Moolah has run through her entire repertoire at this point.
Moolah is old enough and got in the business early enough that when she began in the business, she was literally shoot fighting people.
Got her with the cradle. Pretty sure his shoulder came up on the pin.
That was the favor she was repaying with the screw job.
Yeah. Of course, they have to dub over "Girls Just Want to Have Fun" on the network, but that was Wendi Richter's entrance music here.
A kid tries to grab the jacket out of her hand. Cindy turns around and shoves the kid.
I can't believe they set the aisleway up that narrowly. Oof. David Wolf getting his mug right there on camera.
The best part is David Wolf didn't have to go back to the locker room when Cindy did. He was still just standing next to the ring.
For all the help he gave.
I kind of understand why Vince winds up screwing Wendi Richter, though, because what are you going to do with her long term? There aren't but like 5 women's wrestlers in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. If you signed all the women in the world, what would you have? You'd have to steal all of Japan's women?
Yeah, this is a really good time for Japan's women, actually. This is like Jaguar, Yokota, and all of that good stuff going on. So there are Joshi out there, but there aren't any Americans.
Realistically, how many Japanese women are you going to have on your roster for an American company? Here we have Mean Gene getting a word with the Junkyard Dog and his mother, Mrs. Ritter.
I'm so glad you said mother, because I was going to ask if that was his mom or his wife, and I was like, I don't want to say it.
On another note, since The Last Dance is airing on ESPN, have you ever seen the clip where Bob Costas interviews Michael Jordan after one of the Bulls championships, and he introduces Jordan's wife as his mother?
No.
This happens, and Jordan just looks him like dead in the eye and goes, "That's my wife."
Like, if you're Bob Costas, like, you just kill yourself, right? Like,
he had champagne in his eyes. Here we've got the Duke of Dorchester, Pete Doherty. Main eventer anywhere in America.
This is your main event of the evening, Pete Doherty.
As we said, they book these shows in reverse. The last match on these shows is always a squash.
It's funny the way Vince saw Junkyard, too.
Wraps them cakes.
He was just so clearly, like, mid-card Hogan, right? It's just like, everybody loves him, he can't work, whatever, we'll just bring him out because the fans love to see him.
Super protected, never loses.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, definitely past his prime here, and he wasn't all that good in his prime. I think he just said something to that gentleman there.
Yeah, he sure did.
I think the gentleman reached out and grabbed his mother, and JYD did not appreciate that.
It's so hard to find footage of JYD when he was in his prime, but he was
bringing a chair into the ring. That's interesting.
And a real one. Like, you're going to do some real damage. And Pete Doherty stomps the chair in his hand.
Pete Doherty's a badass. That kid getting his moment of fame. I don't know. Who is that? JYD's brother, maybe, in the suit with Mama Ritter?
I don't know.
Howard
Finkel at ringside, I just noticed.
Yeah.
With some hair.
JYD with a big right hand.
Pete Doherty attacks the crowd.
Pete Doherty is one of my favorite jobbers from this era. Big clothesline from the dog. Woo, 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 woo. Dog came up with a count-out victory at WrestleMania over Intercontinental Champion Greg Valentine when Valentine refused to return to the ring.
Junkyard Dog grabs Doherty's hair and he just starts screaming into the camera.
Pete Doherty is a legend in my mind.
He is Like, he is easily the most entertaining thing on this show so far to me.
There was such a charm to 80s jobbers. Oh, he's threatening his mama and she doesn't sell it at all.
It's just, they could
Mrs.
be
Ritter
such
does not look
characters.
too interested in what's going on here.
She's like, I wanted my kid to be a doctor. I'm not here for this. I wish we could return to these days where just like people could just be dedicated jobbers but still had use on the roster, you know?
A character and a recognizable face. Yeah, like this added something. I mean, Iron Mike Sharp is a favorite of mine.
Oh, Special Delivery Jones.
Steve Jones, yeah.
I always thought that was like the perfect role for Santino. Is just to be like a comedy jobber.
Yeah. Yeah. Like always gonna be over. Crowd loves him, but he just gets his ass kicked by the new heel in town every time. The Duke ascending to the high rent district there, and that is not gonna end well for him.
And he lands in the middle of the ring.
Only one difference between Pete Doherty and Ric Flair.
And that is?
Pete Doherty just took the Flair bump. He's got long blonde hair.
I mean, it's a good point. I think Flair's worn those tights.
JYD with the big headbutt. It's about time to wrap this one up.
I'd just like to highlight that the referee looks like they dug like some sort of like mystical dwarf out of a fantasy realm and put him as a referee of this match.
I don't think they were still using mark referees in New York at this point.
Who are all these people at ringside? Because at least half of them look like mobsters.
Doctor, trainer, timekeeper. I am curious about that.
That guy by the turnbuckle is for sure a mobster, and you will never convince me otherwise. And the thump!
That's over. Could count to 100.
Pete Doherty tries to kick out to show how strong he is. Doesn't quite manage it.
JYD was still coming out to another one bites the dust at this point. He'll get Grab Them Cakes off the Pile Driver album as his music when they have to go away from using licensed music.
Which I think, as we all agree, is a much better song than anything in the Queen library.
Grab them cakes. Know how to dance. Get Mama Ritter in the ring. Watch her bust a move.
One of my favorite things in wrestling is watching people who don't know how to get into a wrestling ring try to get into a wrestling ring.
What a nice man. He loves his mama.
He loves his mama.
Even bad men love their mamas. Got her church dress on and everything.
That really is just like her church finest.
Yeah.
Cyndi Lauper's Mother's Day surprise.
Yeah,
wow, what a party.
We got the Mother's Day party now. JYD, Mama Ritter, I assume that's his daughter, who I think many years after this accepted his induction into the Hall of Fame because he had passed away.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Did they only invite one mom to this party? They invited Sheik and Volkov to the party?
They don't have no mamas. I think Sheik, I believe they both go on rants. You know, Sheik rants that his mother is back in Iran. Volkov says his mother is back in Russia.
I just love the idea that somebody was putting together a Mother's Day party. He's like, well, we got to invite Sheik and Volkov. They're the life of the party. Drinking out of little pink Solo cups.
Got classy Freddie Blassie up next here in the line with the woman he claims is his mother. If you're not watching along at home, it's a knockout model.
Yeah, that's nice. Gene tries to kiss the mom.
Get a feel. Lou Albano reads a Mother's Day poem.
While Hulk Hogan looks concernedly over his shoulder.
I don't know if that's Hogan's real mom there. I'll just assume it is. It doesn't feel like they'd get actresses at this point. That's probably his mom. I can see the resemblance.
She's got a Florida accent. It makes sense.
Ruth, we'll call her Ruth Hogan, Ruth Bolea.
There it is.
And Richter's mother?
I'm guessing.
I can see the resemblance.
And Richter's looking like a knockout right here, actually.
Oh, yeah. Now, I would go to the club and dance with her all night long.
Absolutely.
Wear my leisure suit, like we'd have it out.
Dude, so much cocaine, my God.
Lots of coke. I think Gene's got his eye on Miss Richter.
And here comes everyone's mom.
Moolah, yeah, old enough to be everybody's mom. Did Moolah have kids?
No, because Moolah was a lesbian, but never came out.
I mean, in this era, those two things, not necessarily contradictory.
I mean, you're absolutely right about that. In fact, I'm going to Google it right now to make sure I'm right about that.
I don't know that
she did have one child.
She did. Look at that.
Wow.
Yeah, Moolah's going to show up and ruin the party, and then Lauper's going to throw her into a big cake. I don't know that we ever saw Cyndi Lauper in the WWF again after this. Not really sure what happened.
I feel, do not quote me on this, but I feel like I heard that she had a bad experience somewhere along the line. And it may well have been here for all I know, but
yeah.
Like, once you get exposed to the sleazy side of the business, it's hard to come back, you know?
And she gets thrown in the cake, as does Gene. Man, Gene always willing to take one for the team and look like a fool.
Look at that. Also, can we just note that Fabulous Moolah here is wearing one of Shawn Michaels' outfits?
The leather daddy best. Nice fall by Moolah there. We come back, crowd is filing out. They'd always backload the commercials here, so we come back to Jesse and Vince, who kind of wrap things up. What do you make of this? I go back and forth on whether I like going back to the announcers at the end of the show or whether we should just kind of go off the air, like hot and in the middle of a brawl or like with the aftermath of a match.
I've never liked this. Like, I understand the temptation to do like a wraparound and have the announcers try to sell stuff on the way out, but I've always been of the opinion that unless you have a very special announce team, your fans are not sticking around to watch announcers talk. Like, if there's something that you want to try to sell, you got to sell it while they're watching something exciting. You're just losing people with that.
No, and like, I mean, very much, as we said, you know, it's a slow finish. Like, the big stuff was at the beginning with the Hogan match, and, you know, at the end we had a squash match, we had a non-wrestling segment, and then we went back to the announcers twice to wrap things up, and they threw the credits. Interesting that they have credits. That's not something you see anymore.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like an Ebersol deal and not a Vince deal. Vince never likes anyone to get credit but Vince.
Yeah. But right thing to do. All these people worked on this show. They deserve credit for it.
Yeah.
Once a Month Productions, Inc. That must be Ebersol's company.
It's got to be, yeah.
And all we right, are out.
That was, it felt like 20 minutes. Like that says that it was a really good show, that it really felt a lot shorter than it was.
That was a nice, tight 53 minutes without commercials. It's something to watch a wrestling show that isn't 2 or 3 hours long, isn't it?
Doesn't it make you so badly wish every wrestling show was an hour long?
Yeah.
Because, like, you don't have time to get sick of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I like AEW. Their 2-hour shows are usually pretty good, but, like, I think they could do some really hot 1-hour shows. Or you imagine, like, Raw at 3 hours is pretty much unwatchable, but I think they could do a really good hour of TV every week.
Oh my God. Even with the limited people that they do have, they could absolutely do that. You don't have to see Seth Rollins 11 times during the course of the show. Why not two? How
Yeah.
about that?
You don't have to have a 26-minute match for no reason.
But then you'd have to cut 40 of the people on your roster because it wouldn't make any sense because you don't have to have 1,100 matches per show.
Well, they just did that last week, so they're on their way to doing it now.
There's still actually more people who are being released. Cain Velasquez got today.
And in his epic WWE run.
What a run, buddy. So what did you think about this Saturday night's main event? Like, if you had tuned into this and had never watched wrestling before, which the majority of the audience probably never had, would you be coming back for number 2?
I think so. I think that was a really good presentation of this product. They had a lot of big stars and Hogan, Mr. T, Piper, Cyndi Lauper, big stars featured on this show, and lots of big events. Steel turning face, Hogan or Orndorff turning face and kicking off his feud with Piper and Orton, title defense for the women's title. I think they did a good job. And then some nice character sketches with JYD and his mom, and the Mother's Day party was fun. And the non-wrestling segments were a staple of Saturday night's main event. They would do, they would have one in November, they'd have a Thanksgiving, they'd have an October one, they'd always have a Halloween costume party. They did a good job of mixing in some entertainment segments on these shows.
Here's a fascinating thing to me is that this does an 8.8 rating, like you said. The next one does an 8.3. The one after that does a 6.3. The one after that, 4, does a 10.4 rating, and it never drops below a 9 after that. It's crazy.
I think 4 is the one that set up WrestleMania 2. I think that's the one where Hogan attacks Bundy.
I think so. Yeah, it's the one. It has Hulk Hogan versus Terry Funk on it for the title.
Oh, no, that's actually before that, but Hulk Hogan versus Terry Funk sounds fucking awesome.
That's fucking awesome.
It is. I've seen it. It's a very good match. If Funk had gotten to work with Hogan more, his horse wouldn't have gotten sick so soon.
Oh, you're damn right.
So yeah, any other takeaways from that? Fun to dive back into the Hogan era. We haven't done a Hogan, we haven't done an 80s show in a long time because we've kind of done just about all of them at this point. We've done the WrestleManias and the SummerSlams. There's only so much left. We could do one of the old Royal Rumbles or one of the old School Survivor series, and that's about it. Or we could do more of these.
Yeah, that's part of the problem with our show is there's parts of wrestling history that you really want to talk about, but you really can't because those shows just don't really exist. We can't just cover a random big-ass Madison Square Garden house show from 1983. You just can't do it. It's not there because that's not what the business was until the 90s. We're kind of restricted to just covering what actually got onto tape,
Yeah. Yeah, there is so much of wrestling history that was it's lost to time. The Garden shows, they're on film, they're in WWE's archive in the warehouse somewhere, but most of them are never going to see the light of day. And even if they did, it's kind of hard to watch them without the context of the TV that had led to them.
Right. And I would love to cover Pat O'Connor versus Buddy Rogers in Chicago in front of 63,000 people, but look, that's just going to be a pipe dream because I don't think it exists.
No, that's not what the folks want to hear about.
Nope, unfortunately, y'all want to hear about some other stuff.
What are they going to hear about next week? We've got, from the first episode of Saturday Night's Main Event to the first In Your House pay-per-view, we've got In Your House from May 1995, the debut of WWF pay-per-view going monthly.
That was so fascinating. This was a time where they were basically just experimenting with the idea that people would want more than just the normal ones. And I bought, I want to say, most of these.
It's been borne out through wrestling history. People will always buy more. People question whether people would pay for more than one pay-per-view a year, and they would. They question whether they'd pay for a pay-per-view every month, and it turned out they would. Whether they'd pay for more expensive pay-per-views, it turned out they would. Turns out there's always enough diehard fans who will spend even more money on wrestling.
You're looking at him, but what can we enjoy on this show, Steve? What's going to be on the very first one?
Well, the main event is Diesel versus Psycho Sid, so strap in for that.
Holy shit, I do not know who I'm going to root for in that one.
We've got an awesome match between Bret Hart and Hakushi, kind of a lost gem.
Bret Hart has 2 matches on this show?
He also wrestles Jerry Lawler. Yes, dude. For some reason, if Bret Hart was going to wrestle Jerry Lawler, it was always set up that he'd have to wrestle somebody else first.
That's fair, because he had to have a good match before he stunk it up with Lawler.
And there's something with Razor Ramon. I don't remember what it is.
He's facing Jeff Jarrett and the Roadie at the same time.
Oh boy, how will he ever overcome that dominant duo?
And more importantly, Mabel versus Adam Bomb, which I am just electrified to present to you.
Yes. So yeah, we will cover the next evolution of the WWF's business as they go to monthly pay-per-views next time on the Lawcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week.